Thank you all. On the emotional, a part of it, emotions of the people and all this stuff. Maybe, Shanu, you can start from there. You know, what
Sure.
we're all observation is actually saying that before the COVID, the people management and then personal touch. Now, while in this period of COVID, I think you all actually managing your teams, your leaders are managing the teams and all this stuff. Right? There's a huge change in the way of handling. Also, I think behaviors from the people. Now, what do you think that actually is going to come back when you guys really start working back to offices? Probably next 3 months or 4 months kind of a thing. What kind of thinkings everyone will have, and how do you guys want to manage that?
So thanks, Murli. Thanks for picking this up. And Murli, you're being very optimistic. 2 to 3 months down the line, going to office is like a dream come true, believe me. But if it happens, I'm telling you, these have been difficult times where people have seen the real emotions coming out in different facets, different forms. In my experience, solely my experience with managing my own team, and as I hear from my peer, I feel there is more warmth and more genuineness. It's more upfront, frank. I see my colleagues' children playing around. I can see the background where people are passing because that's the reality. I can see my colleagues saying, "Give me a minute. I just need to open the door. There is there's a bell ringing. There's nobody at home." These are very genuine and frank conversations, which helps you understand the reality, the nuances, the concerns which people tend to have. We have become very compassionate. We have become more understanding, believe me. I have started practicing and asking my colleagues, because I connect with my colleagues across the globe, more importantly, Asia Pacific and US, and I'm very sensitive. What is your breakfast time and what is your making of dinner and lunch time? When do you wash the utensils? Tell me that. Because I'm not going to fix meetings at that time because I'm going through the same ordeals. So this kind of discussions and this kind of conversation, which when we have with our subordinates, our peers, it makes you a very open person. It makes you feel trusted, and you start trusting your other people much more. Then we are in a very formal environment that is
Hello?
in the office.
Okay.
So once we go back to our office, we've had this background of several months of connect. I think the bonding will be even more stronger. The relationship will be far more evolved and far better. So that's what I feel is the emotional quotient of the entire setup of this COVID time. About digital, I think there is another big word coming on agility. How a workforce of future. That's something which is coming up big time. How fluid is the talent who can shift from one place to the other? Or as Gautam mentioned, Carlsberg and Novo Nordisk. Are we open to looking at partners in our own competitors? Are we open to looking at our partners who within the community or industry to bake a better solution for the mankind? Is something which is giving us a bigger and a broader vision. This is the whole COVID, which has given us a very, very upsurge, very positive outlook to the whole talent space. It's become an open ground. It's become very fluid. Till yesterday, it was not like that. We were very conservative. We were looking through our shields in one direction. We were not exploratory. We were not innovative. Today, we have started doing a lot of innovation, a lot of jugaads, and India is known for that, but it's spread across the world.
Fantastic. Fantastic. I think, Gopal, you guys also kind of, spend a lot of emotional side of, especially in, Vodafone information systems, right? Shared services firm. I think I heard it when I met you people and then your leaders earlier. So, how you guys are handling this emotional piece of people managing, especially.
So it has been very dynamic, honestly, because the first wave was extreme emotions. People were struggling to work, to balance out work and household stuff, and especially for most part of India, they were not getting any kind of a house help. So I myself was doing all the house chores. So we kind of shifted our entire mindset of hourly based deadlines to a day based deadline, because people have to be given the kind of flexibility to work at any part of the day instead of restricting them between working only between 10 to 7, because the grocery shops would open in a smaller window, and people have to go, like they don't have a choice, right? And people have kids, they will have to, and this entire pandemic also kind of instigated the fear of being a little bit non-hygienic. Even you can't be there, right? You have to be hygienic all the time. So a lot a lot came suddenly. So initially the emotions were very different. Slowly, gradually, people have started accepting it. And I think the kind of flexibility that they got when we moved from a hourly based deadline to a day based deadline, and we kind of, the entire organization started adjusting towards it, then it became far more easier. uh, then I think the second wave for most of the people managers and leaders was to inculcate a sense of accountability, because you can be given a flexibility, but you still have to continue be work towards output driven. So you cannot work efforts driven. Like I have put in so many hours of work, nobody would buy it, right? A business won't buy it. And we became a part of essential services, so all the jobs suddenly became very important to us. So we could not jeopardize or have a leeway to kind of put any job at the backseat and say it's okay if you don't work. So we have to keep the engine running. That was the second wave that we kind of ran, and we inculcated the sense of accountabilities. I think the third wave is now what we're running at, because one big shift in the ways of working came along, and people started calculating their work hours based on the number of calls that they take. So if they start a call at like 11:30 in the morning instead of 10, that is where the work starts. And if 5 o'clock is the last call, the work ends. Uh, which you know which 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 was tedious, and I kind of agree that it is very tedious to be sitting in front of the laptop with no movement, constantly putting your brain into it, and your brain is simply worked out after six hours of stretched work. So yeah, it is there, but the work continues beyond calls. Uh, I think one of the speakers also mentioned that for a very small discussion, which could have been done over a coffee while we were working at office, now it takes an half an hour call.
Correct.
And yeah, and then there are peripheries attached to it, because if there's a half an hour call positioned and I'm available, then either the scheduler or the organizer would want to talk about more and make the best use of that time, but that entire half an hour is absolutely utilized. There's no minute that you can just go away and say that I might as well get 5 minutes off from this call. So that doesn't happen. So now we are curbing out on that part. I think the next wave, then again, we have to look at how do we manage calls at with shorter and crisper conversations. So a lot, I think it's very dynamic. I echo Shanu a lot in terms of the kind of sentiment that we have all witnessed. But I think still it's a long way to go, and another 3 to 4 months. Shanu, you and I are in Bombay and Pune, so we understand the situation far better. So I think Murli is still in a safer zone. He doesn't know what happens when it goes in extreme. When you calculate numbers like thousands a day. So sorry, Murli, nothing to
Yeah, no,
really.
that's true. Actually, Bangaloreans still
So
feeling little
yeah.
bit, still feeling heaven about the situation.
Yeah, so like for instance, Pune, in certain areas we still are allowed to use domestic help, but Bombay, if I'm not wrong, they are still not in that zone. I
Correct.
mean, no part of Bombay. It's an extreme condition.
Correct.
So yeah, so that ways, yeah, it continues to be. We have to continuously rack our brains to see what coming new. And yes, agility is the word. I kind of doubly echo that statement.
So Gautam, I think on the same topic, right? You now hiring for a change, and everybody is actually kind of managing their workforce. You're actually going around and hiring like hundreds of people now, and then still you need to manage the same piece of actually, your team need to work more than what they're doing earlier. Still manage them and all this stuff. It looks like a little tough and contradictory to the situation. And wanted to hear any specific initiatives you guys are taking on managing people and all stuff.
Yeah, so I'll tell you, we're a company which is used to working virtually, right? We're out of 130 countries, so there's always a huddle where I have somebody in their pajamas attending the huddle. So all of that doesn't look surprising for us. Like when you have kids joining on call and stuff like that, it just feels like normal for us. And I think that's also the beauty of being working out of 130 countries. I think. Maersk as a company has, always had one of their values as constant care, which means care for their employees now and care for their future. Okay, so that has been our core of core of how we operate, and I think what has helped us during the pandemic is, of course, enhance the entire experience. Of course, we give them a lot of employee assistance programs, which always there in place. Know that if we were working at the pace we are working and the number of people over there, there are people who employees of ours who've been affected by the virus, or families who've been affected by the virus. So there was a need to be compassionate and empathetic towards the situations and how they were going to deal with that. Other than that, I think what we've really done is been really flexible and empowered a lot of our leaders, which meant that if there were families where there was a working woman who wanted to work in the morning and then join start working in the afternoon, we were fine. So we were a lot more flexible of splitting shifts into two halves, probably 4 hours in the morning and 4 hours in the night. As long as work was getting done, we were kind of okay with the whole thing. And what has also happened is this has opened our gates to a lot of gig workers as well. So, a lot of the gig workforce is now applying to a lot of our jobs, and we find because it helps us get a lot more workforce who is okay to kind of do a 4-hour shift in the middle of the night. So, we can attend to some customer who's operating out of Brazil or China or some other part of the world. So I think while the situation we've kind of had a tough situation in the beginning, I think we've been able to be agile and flexible and manage through the situation.
Fantastic. Good to hear these points. So, maybe I'll move to Jatinder and Charles, because they're both of them handling the high technology workforce and then, young workforce as per them, right? So now I think, looks like market is moving towards, gig economy, or actually making people, somebody's talking about in the West and especially in Europe, dual employment can be okay, right? So with the technology work you guys are handling and kind of work you guys do, right? How do you guys look forward on one, getting the right kind of people working, maybe half work in your firm and half work in other firm, right? Is that really possible, right? I wanted to hear, maybe any of you can just pick up, talk about dual employment, or freelancing game is going to come up big time, right? So wanted to hear from both of you.
Still not yet explored, but we are expecting. As Murli said, we really don't know. We really don't have a clue. But but that has been a trend in many organizations. Today, if you look at 4 hours, even in my previous organization, where we used to hire consultants who will work for 3 hours, 4 hours. Now we pay them hardly package, and that's how we work. But a company like Zoho, we have never experienced. Maybe we have to wait and watch.
Okay. What about you, Jatinder?
Yeah, so Murli, I don't think there's a right answer that I have. From a Moengage perspective, or even from an industry perspective, but I think it is totally dependent, on a lot of context which is going to play. So I think, let's say, any tech organization like ours, right? So there are two type of talent which is always required. One is the FTs, and the second one is primarily the gig or the freelancing, right?
Correct.
Because we keep on kind of building a lot of products. It's a B2B firm, right? So we work with a lot of customers, and they keep on coming with a lot of tech requirements around integrations, etc., etc. So I think it has to be very, very contextual. because it will not get driven by the type of talent which is available in the market, but I think it will be totally driven from, what's your business model is going to be. Let's say if the business model essentially, wants me to look at my talent cost differently, which means looking at FTs very differently, and there are particular projects, or there is a demand, which I need to cater to. That is where I have to kind of start looking at this sort of talent. But having said that, for any organization, whether it's an Indian organization or it's a Western organization, I think the example of dual employment comes with a lot of implications. So while a lot of organizations may be doing that, but I think this has to be done, for after a lot of due diligence, because I think there is a lot of legacy which is involved from an organization perspective. So first is a context, second one is an legacy, right? Your own experiences of kind of delivering particular type of projects, or let's say large scale changes which comes with this sort of talent. So I think I mean that's my view. I mean, it primarily depends on the context, what is staring in front of the organization, because apart from legacy, you have to look at whether there is a particular kind of focus which is there, what kind of labor laws and labor regulations which are also prevalent in that market. So it's not, I mean, it may be a very, very interesting and a noble, or let's say fundamental thought at this point in time, but it comes with its own share of implications and regulations, which, if you ask me today, we are really not ready. I mean, you don't have to ask this question to a tech firm. I mean, you can ask this question to any firm in India. I mean, fundamentally from a philosophy, are they ready? Second is, from an operational standpoint, are they ready? I feel that we are not ready, but it's a good thought to explore.
Just in case just to add a brief point there, right? I think this is going to set a segue for stronger IP and legal norms across a lot of the industry.
Correct. Yeah. So I think there are a lot of times that if any change looks like it is possible, not possible, before even COVID, right? And none of us, even we're all hesitant where employees 30% working from home used to be a little challenge, and all of us, at least I remember my friends in HR heads were talking about you cannot manage people. It is difficult to increase the productivity and all this stuff. It just all changed, right? And everybody's talking about actually productivity is increased in this COVID times, right? So, in this same scenario, maybe, I want to hear from Shanoo on the same topic. So do you really think, how is it going to happen? If it happens, how is the market in terms of the cost factor is going to come into the picture?
I think I got me. Am I audible? Okay.
Yes.
So I'll pick up from where Gautam initiated talking about gig workers. This is something which is a concept which is picking up. Let's not stick only to gig workers, but we're talking about the fluidity of talent. Jitender mentioned about two concepts of an FTE and a contractor. Today, we will have to start thinking as HR, how fluid is my talent? How ready they are to plug and play. Yeah. It's an outbreak. It's a pandemic. Are we ready for today and tomorrow? So that's not what we are constraining ourselves for, just for this time of few months where the COVID is going to stay, because there will be a whole transformation in the entire business, whatever business we are doing, whether it is a regulated industry like pharmaceuticals or a non-regulated industry like an FMCG. The whole concept will change. It's going to get more digitalized, more AI prone. Maybe that's the reason why companies like eBay, then Amazon, whichever are on apps and on digital platform, are still surviving and doing fantastically well. And they're not even essentials, but still they're doing well. So it's an opportunity for the market to explore and become even more, I would say, equipped and more digitally knowledgeable. So that's where we are. Talking about the cost, I think it's going to cut cost if we start not spending a huge amount of money on our office setups. So for me, office is a pride. I'll be very frank. This is absolutely my opinion. Going to an office is my pride. I look into my office, I feel very happy about it. But then the WeWorks have started coming. And WeWorks are doing fantastic. So we are outsourcing the space to a company like WeWork, where we are asking all the millennial, and as Charles mentioned, early talent, young Gen Zs, who would like to work from anywhere and everywhere. We were only thinking a few months back, can we explore this? COVID has made it compulsive that we better start doing it. So whether you are sitting outside your house, you are sitting in your native place, you need to just have the infrastructure right. If you have a good running internet, no work stops. So hence, office spaces like WeWorks or working from your home, if you have a little right infrastructure, everything is working. Everything is good. That leads to another question. Till yesterday, I'm specifically talking about India. We did have certain constraints around returning mother. And Murli, this goes to you for starting such an august organization for women. There was a mindset, people would take sabbatical, people would take long leave. Will it be easier for mothers, new mothers, to leave their little ones and come back to office? In COVID time, all myths disrupted. Anyone can work anytime. There is 24 by 7. You block your time when you need to take care of a child, when you block your time when you need to take care of in-laws or children, whatever it is. But you're working 24 by 7. So that's, I think, coming back to the cost, if we make a better use of it, we're going to become very productive and efficient with minimal spend.
Fantastic. Fantastic. I think, yeah, you touched on the diversity part of it. With all of this happening, before, I think earlier, at least when I started this firm a year back, diversity used to be like it's not compulsory for the organizations, but it's a good to have, right? It's a program to drive, and then it's an initiative for the companies. Is that going to stop your business if you don't have diversity? Answer is not really, right? So I remember when I used to have discussions with industry, everybody said that it's a great to have it. Okay, let's increase the diversity, create some programs and all this stuff, right? Now, COVID made everybody to change it, right? Because the business and then cost effectiveness is going to come. So do you guys think still industries still continue to think about diversity is an important factor to run? And just wanted to hear maybe, from Gopal, and then go on. I think I want to hear from all of you.
Yeah, I think this topic is very close to my heart, honestly, if you ask me, because this is getting driven right from the group CEO to every leader, and if all of us, we kind of constantly think, and uh, as a resourcing head, the constant struggle is higher targets year on year and team complaining about it.
Right.
So you said a sentence, Murli. You said that without diversity, will the business stop running? The answer is no, and I would agree. But without diversity, will this business hold? The growth will be halt. My answer is yes. And because you have to touch upon each and every part of the society if you have to be an organization for purpose and sustain. uh, COVID-19 global pandemic, uh, it has touched everybody's life,
Correct.
maybe implicitly, explicitly. And then there are millions and zillions of emotions which are possibly new or have come as a derivative of few more that we had in the past. Yeah, so we do not know as yet that what are all the emotions, and if we really want to thrive, any organization wants to thrive and want to touch upon each and every part of the society, diversity becomes a very, very, very important element for all of us to touch upon. Like, for instance, if I only have to talk about Vodafone's business, which is primarily telecommunication and ensuring that the society is more digital in terms of more digitally connected through voice, data, and phone. If we cannot touch each and every part of the society, we are not there. We do not make a presence there, and people would not predominantly would want to have our products as such. So growth definitely stops. I think diversity is a very, very important element that we want to play along. So we kind of started looking at the LGBTQ hiring last year, and that is not to kind of take pride in terms of hiring such people. It is more to ensure that as the resourcing team, we become a catalyst to infuse more inclusion and, create a platform for more inclusion in the organization. And they kind of seamlessly blend into the culture. And that is where we say that the organization can have a successful run. This year, yeah, we had to halt all our efforts because we were all busy ensuring BAUs. I think now it's a time we have all started thinking on similar lines again, and we want to uh, again be a better catalyst this year as compared to the last year, to infuse more of diversity and ensure that the inclusion is taken to the different level. And it's a collaborative game. I mean, it's not only resourcing, or it's from resourcing it goes to the line manager, HRVPs, then L&D for upgradation, so on and so forth. So it's a whole lot of cycle, and constantly there is a care part, there is an empathizing part, which we have strongly developed in the last 2 or 3 months to kind of help them to sustain in the society. So yeah, that's my opinion about it.
Okay. Maybe I think I'll move to Charles on the same question, because tech companies and startups doesn't believe on the diversity part of it, and want to hear from you.
I mean, especially with Zoho, definitely no, because we have been very, very flexible in terms of having a diversified culture. And to talk about earlier, maybe a couple of years earlier, if we look at when especially women employees, when they take a break and if they want to come back, that's been a challenge earlier. But in the recent times, especially in the last 2-3 years, if you look at the people who come back to work has increased. And especially as Shanoo mentioned, during this lockdown period and after COVID, we are definitely looking for many women employees now, especially who would like to take up the role, even if they have a 3-year or 5-year break, if they are really wanted to, upscale and build a career. And our door is always open, and we have experienced. And especially, if you look at last 1 year, I can give many numbers in terms of people who have joined with breaks and who wanted to continue their career. So definitely diversity is going to play a vital role, having so much of flexibility at this moment.
Fantastic. Want to hear from another panel as well on the diversity, Gautam or Jatinder?
So Murli, somewhere I feel that many organizations essentially look at diversity as an end goal, right? And I think mature organizations and the most progressive organizations, we essentially look at, okay, this is where we want to be. But I don't think that is essentially fundamental to all the philosophies which are being curated. I mean, it is actually a journey that all of us actually go through. Uh, and it's slightly interesting in our case, because we are one of the startup who actually believes in DNI. So yeah, I mean, it's a 300 plus workforce, but I think it is quite fundamental to us. For we are based in 9 different geographies, right? Wherein we have people from different religions, different races, and for us, it's not largely about the women participation, but a lot more which actually goes beyond. So we started with diversity, I think the last year, which was this 5th year of our operations, but we are actually moving towards for developing our inclusive culture all the more. And I think that's where times like these are extremely important, because these are the times wherein you have been able to kind of be more empathetic. And as Shanoo mentioned, that these are the times wherein we are more emotional. So I think it's sort of a blessing in disguise, because a lot of things that we never paid attention to, right? And when I say we, it's more from an industry perspective, that we thought that these are the things that for we will tackle once we have some free time to us, and we'll create those initiatives as part of our calendar and then go after it. But I think what these times have made us learn, and especially I fundamentally believe that crises are a great time to build culture, because these are the times wherein you can demonstrate a lot of character, you can actually demonstrate a lot of emotions. So I think these are perfect times wherein, especially for HR people, I feel that it's a blessing in disguise, right? I mean, you look at how we have started looking at engagements, we have started looking at remote practices, whether it is hiring or it's about performance management. Because another thing that we couldn't touch today is how do we look at performance management in a scenario wherein it's a constant feed, right? And there is a lot of uncertainty and ambiguity in terms of business and also jobs at the same time. But coming back to the fundamental question of diversity and inclusion, I feel from a talent perspective, organizations will move a lot, not only from a cost perspective, but also from the entire acceptability perspective. Because now organizations have seen that, okay, a lot of constraints that, we used to feel in terms of returning mothers not being able to kind of, cope up with the job requirements, X number of hours being expected. I think slowly, in the last 3.5 months, that has gone. So there's a lot more acceptance, in the industry, wherein we say that, hey, these were the various jobs which we thought, are pretty difficult to kind of look at. But I think due to this acceptability, there'll be a lot more inclusion we'll start seeing in the workforce.
Fantastic. What's your thoughts, Shanoo and Gautam?
So I echo whatever all the colleagues have been talking about, Jitinder, Gopal. I think it's more of a mindset, and it's a very leader-driven thought process. So it depends on the company's value, where we stand. In other part of the world, diversity have different meanings and have a different definition altogether. But where we stand today, we are pretty narrow in our thinking around diversity as well. We are evolving, we are graduating. So talking about women in the organization, hiring women as only one element of diversity, I think we are evolving. We are becoming more open. We are also trying to put up a few tests to the situation and trying and seeing in different kind of workforce. So we are trying and seeing and evaluating that. But yes, as Gopal talked about, different sects, different geographies, different background, different industry. So these are all diversity. Inclusiveness is in itself a huge discussion point. We need another session, Murli, to have inclusion to be discussed overall, because that's a very, very important topic. Whether we are consciously practicing that and it is becoming a part of our behavior is a big question, which I think we need to open up for a big discussion. But I agree with Jitender. It's more about inclusivity, which one has to talk about while we're talking about diversity as well.
Fantastic.
Great. So I'll go last, but I think diversity specifically for me is not just about gender diversity. While I'll still talk about that, at Maersk we have a good diversity ratio. Although the perception about Maersk is a very masculine organization with huge containers and ships. Specifically, women hesitate to apply around it, but we've done a lot of branding in that space to kind of attract a lot more women. Today we are at a 40% diversity ratio, especially in the gender diversity ratio in India, and 70 in Manila, and 90% women in China. But that's a reverse diversity problem which we have in those two locations. But in India, while we have a 40%, we still strive to make sure that we hire more, because that's a very leaky pipeline, and hopefully the pandemic will help change that, because women will get a lot more time to spend with family, and with the whole ways of working changing. I'm assuming that it will the split shifts and stuff like that will just encourage a lot more women to be a part of the workforce. So I'm really hoping that this changes the whole scenario around diversity. But since we also spoke about how digital is going to be our crucial factor, considering the pandemic and how we're going to deal with the new normal, I think diversity is going to play a key role, right? It's going to be quintessential, and it's going to be a huge success factor for any business, for that matter, primarily because when we're talking about digital, then we're also simultaneously talking about AI, and we are talking about machine learning and stuff like that. So all of that is so dependent on diversity. For example, to create an AI code, the kind of data you put into that into the machine is going to be really important, so that you get the right code. Otherwise, it's going to be imbalanced, and you're still going to get a garbage in, garbage out, basically. So I think there is an essential need for diversity to be on the table, maybe technology, or maybe even creating a new product. Like even the other day, I was reading an article on Mercedes-Benz, right? And they were talking about how they were designing an S-Class, and when a woman sat inside the car for a test drive, she said, "I don't have place to keep my purse or my bag." Versus there's an ashtray. I mean, I'm being biased saying when I say ashtray, because women could also smoke, but I think her observation was that there is no place to keep my bag. So it's very essential that for any successful women to have a diverse workforce.
Fantastic. Yeah, I think it's a good thing. When I was talking to a lot of leaders in the industry, not even in India and even Western areas also, I think looks like the same similar views coming out. The diversity is actually going to even improve because of the hesitations of the women, coming back to office is not really required anymore now. They can work from home. So the number of people available for the same role is going to increase, right? So that's other plus point, maybe because of the COVID, right? So fantastic. So I think, I will stop these questions. And first of all, thank you very much for all these, question and answer sessions by the panel here. So I'll open up to the questions to the audience, because we have about some 70 odd people. So a few questions already came in panel. So I'll start reading them. The first one from Neha. So she's saying, in the current COVID situation, how to attract the right talent, considering when many are not looking around the jobs, right? So maybe any of you can pick up, maybe, Gautam, you can pick up because you're hiring a lot nowadays.
Yeah, so I think a lot of us are hiring at this point in time. Today, if I look at the number of jobs which are open in Bangalore, we almost have around 30 to 40,000 open jobs across the Walmarts, the Amazons, and Maersk, and a lot of the other retail organizations which are operating right now. I think it is about making sure that your resume reaches the right person, and also making sure that you market yourself really well. I think in the current situation, just sending a resume might not really help, but I think you need to be more socially present, try and contribute to a lot more posts on social media, so that people automatically get to observe that you are interested in a certain field, and then reach out to you directly. I think just sending out a resume is now going to be very cliche. I think I'm also rethinking the fact that if anybody should create a resume, it should rather be a digital or a video resume than a normal resume from here onwards.
Correct. I think, I just wanted to say that, right? And video resume is actually the one which is mostly should come into the market, because at least they can present themselves better than a Word CEO or a CV, which typically copy paste around everywhere and all the projects, right? I think that's going to be a massive, change is should happen, right? Fantastic. So the next question from Deepak: what should be our main focus on, diversity or talent? What should be the driving force when recruiting? A diversified workforce perspective or a talented, workforce mindset? So basically, do you really look for diversity with the talent, or what kind of mindset? Maybe Gopal or Shanoo.
Yeah, I think I'll pick it up, and Shanu, you may want to add if I miss something. So first of all, while you hire for against a job, merit is not to be compromised. It is irrespective of the fact whether you want to hire diversity or not. The hiring diversity, please understand, the end goal is to create inclusion. The end goal is not to hire 50% women in the organization, and the organization is not prepared to sustain and give them the right career progression. So first of all, understand that bit. Second is, while you kind of test the waters, while you test the talent, it has to be tested on a common platform, irrespective of genders. Yeah. The best thing that you should do is, which my colleague just spoke about, is do branding. I mean, the way you brand your jobs, the way you get your applications, possibly your assessment has to be stronger on that side. but you have to attract more and more CVs to your kitty so that you can get best talent. And uh, I will never agree that what in technology or any kind of a job, what a man can do, a woman cannot deliver. I mean, that cannot be true, right? So in that case, you attract applications and then do the right assessments and then find the right talent. I'm sure diversity will be, uh, your diversity percentage can be a seamless fraction of the target that you have.
I think in today's days, companies are hiring to run their businesses. So nobody is going to hire diverse talent just to make it a tick in the box. I think we are all interviewing for diversity, but hiring for talent.
True. Correct. Agree.
So there is one specific.
I'll just add, Murali here. I think it depends who is the person who's asking question. Is it the business? It is the HR? Or is it the recruiter? The reason I'm asking this question is, believe me, there is sometimes a perception and a fad. Diversity has become more of a fad. But try and understand, why are we driving diversity? Try and see what is an organization which is gender balanced bringing to the table versus one which is not. So I think it all depends from where you're coming, actually. There is no debate and there is no argument that it is the talent we are hiring for. But sometimes we are under pressure, and it is a very legitimate pressure, that we better bring a female talent to run this particular business or this function, because it would have a different ball game, it would have a different understanding, it would need a different skill set altogether. And I will not say it is going to be wrong or right in trying to do that. If we want to bring to something, what just Gautam said, they are 40% female in and their organization. And Gautam, let me agree, I always saw Maersk as a very masculine organization. And thank you for sharing that. This is definitely bursting my myth. Similarly, believe me, I never knew that job descriptions sometimes reflect a lot of masculineness in the job. And I was like taken aback when one of the candidates just randomly said, it seems like this is going to fit a male better. I was taken aback and I was in awe. I said, why did you think that? No, you see, the job description reads something like this. And that led to us thinking that how can we make our job description, which is so basic, gender neutral at least, if not female or if not male oriented. These are some very fine thinking, but believe me, it's a very important aspect on who is reading it. And this new millennial generation, they are so smart. They are so picky. Maybe I'm going to read just 6 lines from the job description and I'll try to grasp what the job is. They read word to word and they're going to tell you something which you would wonder, is it in a part of the job description? So just sharing that, it is always a talent. But if there are certain businesses, if there are certain functions, if there are certain organizations who are taking a stride ahead to become a little better gender balanced, I think it's not a wrong thing. And to pick the right talent, to make it more neutral, to make it much more balanced, I think that's the way to go.
Fantastic. So this is specific question to Jatinder by Anand. So they wanted to understand. So you spoke about the loaning talent thing, and if they're both, are companies in the same competitive arena, how do they manage it? So loaning on the similar skill sets works, and how it works out, kind of thing.
So I think, the examples are are of all kinds, in the same industry as well, but it's largely prominent, across industries, because I think one of the fundamental reason why people are collaborating is they are trying to solve a business problem, right? Now, a problem statement, for let's say a supermarket organization wherein they really need to optimize a lot of cost, right? So they need to furlough a lot of their people. Now, despite despite taking that call, they are getting into an agreement or an arrangement, let's say with a grocery retailer, wherein they know that the COVID or this pandemic has actually fueled growth, and they need a lot of people, right? So fundamentally, it is prevalent in business models which are complementary. or wherein there is a business case. Second is there is a lot more which needs to which needs to be seen than just a strategic partnership, because there's huge amount of operationalization which is involved in that, right? So that's why organizations have to look at a complete package very, very differently. It's not just about kind of communicating to people saying that, hey, tomorrow this is what your offsite is going to be. No, there's a lot more sensitivity, there's a lot more packaging which needs to be done in terms of change, in terms of communication, and also in terms of the entire operationalization of benefits, right? Because a lot of questions which needs to be answered as well, saying that, hey, I'm loaning my employee to this particular organization for 30 days while I have taken care of all the contracting piece, right? But tomorrow, let's say the talent comes and asks you, hey, I want to continue with the future organization. What are you going to be doing, right? So there are going to be a lot more very, very interesting implications which are going to be there. But I think fundamentally, how you message the entire I would say package, that's number one, is going to be very, very important. So I think, yeah, but it is still very, very small. It's a nascent, I would say, phenomena. Especially, I haven't heard that in India. We have heard a lot of strategic partnerships, on a business front, but we are yet to see, a lot on the people front. Otherwise, we will also try and kind of, cater to the talent needs. So yeah, that's my view.
Fantastic, Jatinder. So there is one more question. So, there is a confusion on large companies in India, especially. They're giving a contradictory statements. Like, for example, the question comes like this. TCS says that by 2025, they want to become 80-90% of the workforce working from home. On the other side, Infy says that, moving towards working from the office is going to be much better, right? So the productivity is going to increase. And there's a two large contradictory statements by the large organizations in India. That is one. The connecting question to that is actually, if working from home given, what kind of an infrastructure support is organizations are planning to give and all this stuff? Maybe, Charles can start, and then, anyone can actually support him.
Yeah, and now two ways of looking at, yes, as you said, TCS is working in a different style, and Infosys thought process is different. But today, if we look at, definitely there is going to be a lot of flexibility, and that's the key, where every organization will look for flexibility in giving employees in terms of freedom. As I think Gautam also mentioned clearly, today our young workforce, this is how they say, let me work whenever I'm convenient. Let me work for 5 hours today. Let me work for 5 hours on a Sunday. Right. So that flexibility is there. So we will not have, much implication in terms of making mandatory for employees to work from office. That flexibility will always continue. Number one, and coming to office is very, very special. And as an organization like Zoho, where we feel like maybe small groups can be connected in their respective region, respective location, and work together. And instead of regularly visiting our physical office, which is in Chennai, or which is in Tenkasi and so on, maybe small groups. For example, if I'm in Bangalore, maybe along with my friends who are in Bangalore, basically get connected there, and maybe visit our base office once in a while, and so on. So that flexibility is going to be the future which we are looking at.
So maybe, this question's to all of you, right? So are you guys actually created a budgets towards infrastructure creation to people who are working from home? Is that something is there in the thoughts? For example, I saw some of the companies are sending the laptops and the chair and, all the sitting system to offices. I saw that they sent it in a quick game, but is it in the part of the budgets going forward? Is it there?
I'll tell you one thing, Murli. The organizations are saving a lot on the infrastructure cost right now. But given the fact that this year, again, we are anticipating a kind of recession, maybe in another 6 to 8 months at the max. This saving is for the rainy days to come. And we may not be able, no organization will be able to really carve out a budget, although it is definitely there in the thought process. Second bit of it is if we are really talking about a gig economy and we are really talking about freelancers to work with us, especially in the in the youngest generation, you really can't set up an office for them at one location because the need is that they want to work from any location.
Correct.
And and you cannot allow, or you cannot kind of fund them to create multiple office infras at different places to work. So there there could be allowances. If I remember, a decade ago there were no telephone allowances. Then that was introduced. Then internet allowances were used. If this becomes a mandate, yes, we will also start working towards it. Whether the planning has started, the answer is yes. Whether anything has formed up by now, the answer is no. Because it's very dynamic. And we are changing. Like if I look at Bombay and Pune, the situation is changing almost every day. One day the number of cases are low and we are a little happy. The very next day we start sobbing again because the number doubles. So we do not know where we are heading. Yes, the planning, the thought leadership is in place. Uh, I think it will take another 2 to 3 months for any organization to firm up their benefits around, home offices or funding home infrastructures. Yeah, over to other colleagues if they have a different opinion, if they have witnessed any other kind of a thought leadership.
So this is, maybe I'll put this to Shanu, right? So there is one question: what are your outlooks on the psychological safety of the employee? So now we are seeing a lot of the mental health effects on the people because of various reasons. So is there any specific measures you guys are thinking about taking it as an organization, or have you heard anything?
So Murli, this is something which is a very sensitive topic, and I think majority of the organizations, I'm sure, 100%, not 90%,
Correct.
the HR and business are partnering to connect with their employees very regularly. So much so that they're just doing a call to say, hi, how are you? A very simple line. I hope you are doing well. I hope the family is doing well. There is a very small cohort of people or a team which is being created in organizations whose responsibility is just to check on people's need, requirement, issues, concerns, challenges. So it is extremely important. Many of us in our organizations may not be having the rightful infrastructure, and we are forced to work in this environment. Many of us, I'm saying. So in that situation, it is even very important. It is a big response. Not saying it is HR's responsibility, but I think it's a dual responsibility to reach out to all the colleagues across. So yes, we are taking a lots and lots of initiative to engage with our employees just by saying, it's like a coffee break, or maybe I would say a tea break session, or a yoga session, or it could be a Zumba session, it could be health and wellness sessions, it could be a business update, it could be something talking about the pandemic already and how are we progressing, lots of sessions. So it's a very, very, I would say, versatile topics which are picked up from the interest of their employees so that we can keep them engaged, we can keep them motivated. So this is something which is done on a very official and a formal platform. But outside of that, it's more, I think, a one-on-one which has become far, far higher. It is, as a manager, it is my ownership to take care of my team, how they are, and at the same time, it is like spreading across. That's how we are operating.
Fantastic. Fantastic.
So just to add to this, Murli, engagement initiatives have really gone up, at our end as well, because that's the need of the hour, and we are trying to solve particular problem statements, with respect to the business units, and that's another innovation that a lot of organizations have gone through. More than vanilla flavored programs. Now, people are trying to create, saying that, hey, now the entire engineering team is slightly different, and what you're hearing from engineering team is very different than what you're hearing from a customer success team. So it has prompted for HR and engagement teams to kind of curate initiatives which are very, very contextual in nature as well. So there are two very interesting initiatives we have started, and specifically from a psychological safety perspective. So we started something called as an Inspire Hour. So as the name suggests, it's 1 hour conversation, similar to how you're doing on Zoom, but anywhere between 30 to 60 minutes, including Q&A. It's sort of an internal TED talk, right? But we are inviting people, not celebrities. We are inviting people from outside Moengage, where they are just talking about their stories. So storytelling is the underlying concept, and people are talking about health. People are talking about inspirations. People are talking about their own stories, which essentially mean a lot for people across geographies for us, because I also want them to kind of take out 1 hour of their time on a Friday. Right. Not just telling them, hey, for 1 hour, we'll not do any work, because business will come back and say, hey, important deliverables, timelines, etc., etc. That's number one. Second is, in terms of the one-on-one connect. So we started something called as Founders Hour at Moengage, wherein both my founders have opened up their calendar in a week, and anyone and everyone can go in and block their calendar for about half an hour. So 2 or 3 slots which are open, because we are essentially driving this thought from the top, saying that hey, we want to listen to you, right? Don't think that for you don't have any platform to even talk about. Come, talk to us. We are accessible, and the number of one-on-one conversations have really gone up, and we have started seeing the power of these conversations, because these are not just business ideas. Many times people are coming back and giving you a lot of pearls as well, from an engineering team perspective, sales team, clients, etc., etc. And something which has turned out very, very powerful for us. So yeah, just thought of sharing these 2 interesting initiatives.
Fantastic. I think that's a great stuff.
Just on this topic, right? It's a very delicate topic, and there's a very thin line between what you're doing more and what you're doing less. So while we like keeping it with the leaders, you need to also make sure that your leaders are doing the right thing, because not all size fits all. I've also had husbands come back to me and say, oh, that particular leader is calling my wife every 1 hour. Is there an affair happening? Things like that. So it's a very thin line. So you need to really be very clear about how you're managing your teams, and you really need to have the best leaders to be doing this. So I think coach your leaders as much as possible. We also have an employee assistance program, which we try and it's an anonymous a set of group where people can always, but there's always a stigma attached to that. So not too many of your India employees really use that program. So it's just 2% which uses that, because in a family setting they probably don't even want to call that helpline. So it's a very delicate topic, and I think you really need to have good leaders to be able to manage that situation.
Sure.
Fantastic. I think great session, all of you. I think thank you very much. So there are a few more questions, but we can keep on actually answering. I'm sure you guys are experts in answering the right questions. But I'll send those questions to you guys, and it's a fantastic. We touched upon most of the points which is industries looking forward, and spoke about digital presence. We talked about loaning the talent. We talked about people behavior. We spoke about how leaders engaging the people. I think fantastic, knowing from each of you, and thank you very much. Ankita, over to you.
That was a very wonderful session, you guys. Thank